eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.
Far out. That was a little bit chaotic, wasn't it? I thought I was ready to go. Everything was set up and I was literally about to go live and I realized that I couldn't hear anything. And then I tested everything, couldn't hear anything, tried to fix it, wasn't working. But we got there in the end. What the hell is going on, everybody? I hope you've all had a great weekend so far. We're digging into something tonight that I've actually had on the list for a long time. This is a really, I would say, like it's a pretty famous Australian encounter, but I don't know how this story ranks on a global scale. So I'm interested in a few things today. I'm interested to hear what people who aren't from Australia, how they feel about this encounter. I'm interested to see how we all feel listening to this family being interviewed and answering questions, because I think in the interview that we watch, these people look like genuinely traumatized. And the interview was 36 hours after this encounter happened. And these guys look shook. It's really crazy. And, you know, this encounter happened in 1988 to the Knowles family. And, you know, back then you can tell by the news reporters, these people are essentially being not laughed at, but, you know, this topic is not being taken seriously. But these people really look traumatized. So I'm interested to see how we all feel. We've got some clips from the news reports back in the time. We've got clips of the interview with the family. And we've also got some sort of corroborating stories that happened around the same time and in the same area. So we've got a bunch of stuff to get into today. I'm really excited. Daria's gifted a membership. So has Serp. Thank you very much. You guys are legends. And Dan Garden has gifted 5. Daniel, you are the man. Dan the man. Thank you very much, bro. I really appreciate that. So before we get into it, we are wearing the Touch Grass t-shirt. Beautiful quality. Printed on AS color. You can get yourself one from the link below at the Polarity merch store. They are high quality, I must say so myself. And Rambro's just gifted a membership as well. You guys are absolutely unreal. Before we get into it, we can actually, you know what? Let's give the girl a ceremonial snack because she is just the bestest girl. Here we are, Suki. Say thank you. And we have another. I split one in half for her so we can give her the other half when the show is finished to say goodbye. So I've actually got the original news article here that I'm going to read for you guys in just a moment. But I just want to say, I've uploaded a video today. We had a 4chan leak come out. I don't know if you guys maybe haven't seen it yet. A new 4chan leak. We haven't done one on the channel for a while. 4chan leaks are something that I do like to cover. It's interesting because, you know, I was pretty critical on the boogosphere. I'm a little more higher conviction of this thing. But like, interestingly, I feel like a lot of people were into the boogosphere and they felt like it was real. I don't know. There was just something about it for me where I just wasn't vibing it. I'm not going to say I fully believe this one, but I'm far higher conviction of this object than I was of the boogosphere. But interestingly, most people seem to think it's fake. So, you know, it's weird, right? It's a weird world, but I'm not, you know, I'm not all in either way, like I never am. Dope and a few other people are saying the carvings look way off. This was my opinion on the boogosphere, right? That the inscriptions look handmade. And I agree, they look handmade on this thing too. But it got me thinking, right? Yeah, and, you know, maybe it's because, we've sort of gotten into this topic deeper and we're learning more. But just because this object is anomalous and is maybe using some weird alien-like technology, if we're to, you know, believe that like a secret space program is real, or that there is a group of people with a level of knowledge to do with physics and things that the rest of us aren't allowed to know about, that's why people like Amy Eskridge get silenced, then it's actually not out of the realm of possibility that this thing could be using some kind of exotic propulsion or technology, but still be made by people, by the people who stop these things going through Congress and basically keep us stuck in the district that we are, right? I think that's a possibility. So, you know, it's all on the table. Who really knows? That's the interesting thing about this, is it's all really about opinion. But I thought it was pretty interesting anyway. So we're going to kick this one off with a little bit of an intro story and some news clips, and then we're going to get into the interview with the Knowles family. So for anyone who's just tuning in late, this is the Knowles family. This is a UFO encounter that happened in around the southern part of Australia in 1988.
History is dotted with strange lights and reported visits to Earth of UFOs. Australia itself records 180 sightings a year, and although 92% of these turn out to be planes, clouds, or some other natural phenomenon, 8% are never explained. And it is the skies to the west and south of this vast continent which have played host most frequently to the suspected flying saucers.
What was your reaction when you saw the light for the first time?
Funny sensation. You feel the hairs in your legs sort of curling and your heart's beating at about 1 million things per second, and your arms and legs sort of don't really move. So, what was it? I don't know.
These tough Aussie truckies are the last people you'd expect to believe in UFOs, but these pictures record their terrifying encounter.
It was virtually on the ground, first sighting, and it was there until Monty took that last photograph, and then it appeared to move off.
For the Port Neal community in South Australia, the visit of a UFO wasn't confined to the skies. Whatever the object was, there's no doubt from these pictures that it landed on the Rodders' property.
There's something that's causing these things that we can't explain, so why not believe in source of that?
Now the UFOs have disturbed the peace of the southwestern skies yet again. The Knowles family of Perth were in their car heading across the Nullarbor plain when a bright light appeared above them, picked up their car and dropped it.
Pretty wild, right? Like
Terrified
this,
me.
you know, to pick up. So this is what happened. They were driving. Their car got literally lifted off the ground and dropped. And there's a whole bunch of interesting details which you're going to hear in the interview. But you know, what happened to these guys is very unique. Okay, obviously we hear there are a lot of similarities across UAP encounters that we hear, but having a car picked up and dropped violently on the ground is something you don't hear about all the time. Like, this is a really interesting case, and again, when we get to the interview, some of the little points that they make I think are fascinating. But let's keep. This is where we really get into the story now.
Members of the Knowles family claimed a bright flying object sucked their car off the ground.
It was early yesterday morning when the Knowles family had their close encounter on the Nullarbor plain. About halfway between Melbourne and Perth, their blue Ford Telstar was chased by what they told police was an extremely bright white light. The egg-shaped object hovered above the car, lifting it more than a metre off the ground. Police at Ceduna in South Australia were today at a loss to explain the sighting.
The sun.
Samples of ash taken from the Knowles car have been sent to police forensic scientists for study. So far, the results of those tests are unknown. Tony Coughlin, Eyewitness News.
A head mash and a lead.
Bizarre kind. A Perth family claims it's been confronted by a UFO while crossing the Nullarbor. Their stories being backed by other motorists, and the crew of 2 South Australian fishing boats have also reported being buzzed by a UFO. Faye Knowles and her 3 sons claim an orange blob picked their car up off the highway. They fled in terror into the scrub until the object disappeared.
For the Knowles family, it was to have been a routine drive across the Nullarbor. That all changed as the family approached the town of Mundrabilla on the Air Highway. They claim that's when they had their unexpected and terrifying encounter with the unknown.
The car was shaking. I went down the window and I said it's on top of the roof. And all this, I don't know what it was, it all came inside the car like smoke. We thought we were all dead.
And I went down my window, and Mum said, there's something on the roof. And I said, no, come off it, you know, you've got to be joking. And she went down her window, and she put her hand on the roof, and she goes, my God. She goes, what is it? And no, I swear to God, I'm not lying. I swear to God, I opened up my window, the car started going out of control. And all this smoke, and it was like smoke. I'm not lying. It was like smoke. And gases all started coming in the car. And me and my brother started to go crazy, you know. I thought I was going in my head. Felt like my brain was getting sucked out.
Another motorist
felt like my brain was getting sucked out. Like that's like a Dementor from Harry Potter. Like that's a very weird little detail that we don't hear too often. A few people asking when this is from. This encounter happened in 1988.
and a truck driver also witnessed the incident. They confirm the Knowles family story. Police are investigating the claim. They say the car did have dents on the roof and an ash substance inside. Late today, the Knowles family returned to the scene of their experience for the last time.
And you won't travel that stretch of road again?
No way.
You don't even wish to travel in your own car?
No.
Rod Stephen, 7 News.
History is...
That last little bit here where he's saying there's no way I want to drive on that road, and specifically like this shot here interviewing this guy, like he really comes across as pretty authentic to me, honestly. Like, you know, and it's interesting just to look back at the way people were in the 80s. And, you know, I wonder, I wasn't alive in 1988, but I wonder if people would look back, people back then would have perhaps looked at this and maybe been like unsure if these people were like telling the truth. But I feel, and I don't know what it is, and I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like when you look back at older footage, it's like easier to tell when people are being genuine or not. I don't know if it's because like it was before the internet and people were more just like simple in a way. And I don't mean simple as in stupid. I just mean, I don't know, like life was just a bit more simple. I guess that is the best word, but I don't mean in a way of them being, you know, silly or dumb, right? But yeah, they come across as really authentic to me. The next one, we're going to get straight into the interview. I think, yeah, that's pretty much about all we need to touch on there. But this part is just crazy. This thing is lifting up their car and dropping it while they're going like at a super high speed, which they'll get into detail about in a moment. Bleak threw in $10 and he didn't even leave a note. My man, Bleak. Thank you very much, brother. And Taris has gifted 5 memberships as well. Taris, you legend, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And welcome to all the new weirdos. Let's get some love hearts in the chat for the newbies. And let's listen to the interview of the Knowles family. So this happened in 1988, and this interview is the whole family being interviewed 36 hours after this encounter happened. And honestly, I really feel like, especially the mum, but all of them look like traumatized to the point where they're like they have that stare in their eyes where they're almost like looking through you. Like they look like they're not quite there. You know what I mean? Like that proper trauma stare.
Well, to the Knowles family in Adelaide, thanks for joining us. And 36 hours now after the event, do any of you have any doubts as to what happened? Do you still believe that it was a UFO that landed on your car?
Yes, we do.
Why do you believe that?
Because we actually saw it, you know, it was chasing us, and it all of a sudden it landed on our car, we pulled our car back, and I put my hand out the window, and I fell on the roof.
What did you feel?
It was like a sponge on the roof. It was sucking the roof, you know, the car. It was a sponge. I saw
a sponge. Like that's such a, like I've never heard anything like that. You know, what was she actually touching the craft? Was she touching something else? Or is she like saying it was like a sponge absorbing the car? Weird detail.
How big was it? What did it look like?
About, I don't really know. I can't really explain.
Did you see anything but a light?
No, not really. It was
I can explain it. It was shaped like this. Hang on. It was shaped like this. Had like a little circle in the centre, and that was like a yellow sort of colour. And it had on the outsides, it was sort of shaped like that, and on the outsides it was like that, and in the centre it was like that. And I asked my brother, if that was a spaceship, and he goes, "Don't be stupid." So I got up closer to have a look, and it was moving backwards and forwards. And so we decided to take off to have a look. We decided to take off, and it was flying miles back, and I drove miles up the road again, and it was in front of us again.
How high off the ground was it?
It was on the ground.
I mean, it was on the ground.
It was on the ground, facing us when we were driving along.
And then, so it was moving along with you?
Yeah, it was following us.
And then eventually you tried to get away from it, is that right?
It's still chasing us.
Sean, you were driving. How fast did you get up to?
I got up to about 200 kilometres.
That's very fast. Have you driven that fast before?
No, I haven't.
And the car is capable of doing 200 kilometres an hour?
Yeah.
And at what stage did the object land on your roof?
Oh.
How fast were you going at the time?
I was doing about 200. I got a blowout, and once the car stopped, I blinked out, and I don't know what happened after that.
It was definitely on the roof.
How do we know you're telling the truth?
Oh, there was even witnesses.
But a lot of people think that you are making it up. Do you realise that?
That's not true. No way.
When it landed on the car, what happened?
We were screaming and yelling.
Yeah, a blowout means like a tire popping. Yep, that's right. I also thought, can that car go that fast? I don't know. Maybe it can, or maybe he was at 180, 190, and he's just said 200. The thing is, and I believe the interviewer actually asked them this. A car going that quick, having a tire blow, you're gonna like total your car. But they're saying no, because this thing like had hold of our car, like something was pushing down or had grabbed the car, as we saw in that little visual that came up before. I actually realized that I forgot to read you guys the news article, so we'll finish the interview. I'll read you the news article, and then we'll look at the witnesses who actually witnessed what happened to these guys.
And as soon as it landed on the car, that's when my tyre blew out.
Smoke started coming in the car.
Smoke started to come in the car.
Probably like onions.
And that's when I just blanked out.
There was one report that your voices changed, is that correct?
Yes, they did.
This is weird.
In what way?
Really deep and slow, and I don't know. We started sounding like that. Real deep, deeper than that even. It was so deep, it's really hard to explain. More or less like our voice kind of died out as we were talking.
I find that so fascinating that these guys are saying, as this encounter is happening, they're like screaming and they're all freaking out, but it sounds like their voices are like drowning out and dying. Yes, darkness, time dilation. Has anyone ever done any editing before? Has anyone ever slowed down a video where someone's talking? Do we have any DJs in the chat? Have you ever pulled the tempo down on a vocal track of a song? It starts to sound like your voice gets like stretched out and slowly dying. And time dilation is so prevalent in UFO sightings. Now, these guys don't talk about time dilation, but saying that it sounds like their voices are drowning out is literally the effect of audio with time dilation. And I find that so fascinating.
The car has a blowout at 200 kilometres an hour. There is a danger, isn't it, that it will overturn. How come you didn't?
There was a weight on the roof, and explain that.
Was the car on the road at all times, or was it lifted off as has been reported?
We don't really know, but we think it has been lifted off the road.
How long did it, how long was it with you, this object?
For about 5 or 10 minutes, we think.
Jared says the craft may have saved their lives. That's a really interesting point, Jared. You know, like we often hear about sometimes like divine intervention and things like this. Imagine, what if for somehow this light, this entity, this object knew that they were about to have a tire blowout and applied pressure or weight to the car to keep it down. I'm not saying that's what happened, but it's an interesting alternate theory, right? You know, these guys think that they got attacked by this orb and their tire blew out. What if this orb, which is operating, you know, not in linear time, could see or knew what was going to happen and it was actually protecting them? So this happened on the Nullarbor Plain. And for anyone who's not from Australia, the Nullarbor Plain is like famously the biggest and like longest and emptiest straight stretch of road in Australia. I think in America, you guys have a similar road. I'm pretty sure you guys do. That's just like dead straight for a long ass time with like nothing else there. So that's why I guess this guy was able to get his car up to 200 Ks or whatever. But I just think, yeah, I just wanted to give you guys some context of like where this was happening. Middle of nowhere, nothing around other than a couple of truckies who also had a similar encounter and witnessed it. And we'll get to them after this clip.
Were there any sounds or smells?
Yes, it was.
There was a sound. It sounded like a humming sound. It sounded like boom, boom, boom. And when it was on the roof.
Sorry to keep pausing it, but that again, the humming sound. How many other UAP encounters since then have we heard people saying this? I'm pretty sure the testimony video of Jonathan Weygandt talking about what happened in Peru in 1997, he literally says he makes the exact same noise. He does the exact same thing in the interview. I didn't have time to pull up the clip, but go watch the Jonathan Weygandt testimony video. He literally says, as I approached the craft, it was going wong, wong, wong. Like it's the same thing. Michael Herrera talks about a low audible hum like a guitar amp. You know what I mean? These weird themes are recurring all over the place.
I went down my window and all this smoke started coming. It was like a greyish black mist. And that's when our voices started to change. All of us, our voices just went really deep and strange. And we felt like we were dying. And the brake, my brother chucked the brakes on the car and this thing just shot off. And as it shot off, we just hid out in the bushes. Got out the car, hid out in the bushes, waited for about 10-15 minutes. Went over back to the car, took the wheel off, chucked that in the boot, got the spare wheel out, put that on. And we just let down Jack. We didn't worry about Jack, we just chucked the Jack in the bushes. And we just shut off. And then it started to follow us again. And it started to come by then it was starting to get daylight. And it just seemed to lose us for some reason. We turned the headlights off and that's when it lost us.
Patrick, had any of you been drinking?
No way, no.
Were you tired?
I was a bit tired, yeah, but not tired enough to see a thing like that. And
how scared were you, Patrick?
Oh, really scared.
Terrified.
Scared as I've ever been.
Well, what was your feelings? What were you feeling at the time when this was all happening?
We're going to die. That's what I felt like. We just made us feel like we're dying.
Have you had any unusual feelings since it happened?
Oh, a bit sick or was
I won't turn the lights off at night. I'm too scared to go to sleep.
What do you guys think about that? What do you guys think about this lady? To me, she looks like a very modest lady. I don't think she's trying to get Instagram followers. She looks pretty traumatized. She looks uncomfortable. Kind of looks like she doesn't really want to be there. You know, I just find it. I think, you know, not that I think everyone has to share the same opinion as me at all, but I just think it's a little bit sad when people start writing things like obvious liar, terrible actor, and like all this kind of stuff. Like, dude, I can only go on how I feel, and we can all only go on how I feel. But sometimes I wonder if these people who say these kind of things, like they're not going off how they feel, they're going off this like reactionary impulse that tries to protect the paradigm that they live in. It's not actually about like intuition or feeling or like critical thinking. It's about what is the quickest answer that protects my reality. And so nothing has to change, and I don't have to readjust my scope of the world to fit what happened into this lady. It's far easier to just say that she is a crazy lady who's lying. I think that is the sad reality in a lot of the way people react to this sort of stuff.
Any other feelings? What about you, Wayne? How do you feel about it all?
Pretty scary, mate.
What was the worst part of it for you?
This guy's got the proper trauma stare going on. Like, and I'm not trying to take the piss out of him. Like, this dude, I think he gets asked a question here and he just straight up stares and doesn't answer it. Like, these people really look like trauma victims.
Would you be happy to go back there and have a look around to see what had happened?
Not really. I want to go back.
So just summing up, do any of you have any idea, Wayne, Sean, you think it was a spaceship? What about yourself, Mrs. Knowles? Do you have any ideas?
I reckon it was a BFO or something, you know, because it was strange. It was following us everywhere, wouldn't leave us alone. I was a nervous wreck when I got up to the garage.
Well, thank you very much for telling us your story, and take it easy on the roads.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
How about that, eh? These people are proper traumatized, shaken up. They've just had their car rattled. They've been running off into the bush in the middle of the outback on the Nullarbor Plains with a UFO encounter. And the presenter goes, well, stay safe on the roads. Have a good day. Thanks for coming. Just like, you could just tell, so disconnected. So doesn't understand what the hell is actually going on, which is fair enough because it is wild. But just like, totally did not know what to say or how to end that interview, but did his best. There was a good comment here. Susie, you said, where are these people now? Can you get onto them? Now, I actually tried to. I tried to look these guys up on Facebook because their names are public, and I did find a couple of people with the name and living in an area that I thought could possibly be, but I tried to like compare the faces, and you know, this is a long time ago. It's nearly 30 years ago now. No, 40 years ago. Yeah, this is a long time ago. And you know, it was too hard to tell, and I wasn't about to go messaging some random people on Facebook asking them if they're the UFO encounter victims from the 80s. Like, you know what I mean? If they looked similar enough, I might have, and maybe tried to see if I could get an interview. But no, I on a basic Facebook search, I couldn't find anything, unfortunately. Mark says Jake Barber was trying to retrieve the egg and hooked up their car by accident. Yes, that was a very interesting detail, and we're actually going to get into that because I'm about to read you guys the news article that I forgot to read you at the start. I'm going to read you this, and then we're going to look at another video from the witnesses who saw what happened that night. But just quickly, $20 from Achy Balls. I traveled across the Nullarbor in 1998, but 100 kilometers north of the highway on the service road next to the Transcontinental Railway line. I'm glad I didn't know about this at the time. Terrifying. Yeah. And you know, for anyone who doesn't know, or maybe anyone who's not from Australia, obviously, you know, we know anomalous lights in the sky are not new, but specifically in Australia, in the outback, they are sort of part of outback law and, you know, Indigenous Australians law. And these are known more so to like the Indigenous as min-min lights. And I think, you know, the colloquial term around Australia for these anomalous lights in the outback is min-min lights. So you can often, if you want to look into this kind of stuff, you can look at min-min lights And there is a whole plethora of what we would call UAP or UFO encounters, but Min Min lights is just another name for them. And Stevie says that that presenter is 95% of the world's population. No wonder they won't land in public. Great show, mate. Thank you very much, Stevie. And I agree. Min Min, what does that mean? I don't know, bro. I think it's just the name that was given to them, likely by the indigenous, and it probably has some kind of indigenous meaning, I would say. But other than that, I think it's sort of just the nickname that they got. So let's read this. This is the original newspaper article. UFO encounter on the Nullarbor Plain reported. Adelaide, a Perth family say they were terrorized by a UFO which plucked their car from the road on the Nullarbor Plain. Police said yesterday that they were taking the report seriously after investigating damage to the car, which was covered in an ash-type substance. A truck driver and a car driver also witnessed the bizarre event after being chased by the UFO along the air highway just inside the Western Australian border. Mrs. Faye Knowles and her 3 sons, Patrick, Sean, and Wayne, were about 40 kilometres west of Mundrabilla, driving towards South Australia when they first saw the glowing object at 2:45 a.m. yesterday. Pretty much witching hour, right? And yes, Mundrabilla is just one example of the weird names that you will find in the outback of Australia. Not even in the outback, sometimes in the cities too. They told police they had watched as it chased the truck and car, which were traveling in the opposite direction, before turning and landing on their own vehicle. It apparently picked up the car off the road, shook it quite violently, and forced the car back down on the road with such pressure that one of the tires was blown, a police spokesman said. While this was happening, the family said their voices were distorted and it was as if they were talking in slow motion. Sounds a little like time dilation, right? The voices being distorted is just so fascinating, though. Like, that's like proper time. That's like evidence that the only thing that makes sense is time dilation, I think. Is there anything else that could make sense for someone's voice being distorted other than time dilation? Get in the chat and I'll finish reading this. Mrs. Knowles told the police the UFO turned the car around and placed it back on the road facing in the opposite direction. Once they were back on the road, they had jumped out and fled into the bush where they hid for some time before going back and changing the wheel. They drove to Ceduna in the far west of South Australia and reported the incident to local police. By chance, crime scene investigators from Port Lincoln were in Ceduna and examined the car. We have to take it seriously. There's no reason why we shouldn't, Sergeant Fred Longley of the Ceduna Police said. There were too many witnesses for us not to. The car was damaged and was covered in ash from the object, and they were clearly shaken up. Sergeant Longley said the Knowles drew a diagram of the UFO, which looked like an egg in an egg cup. Jake Barber accidentally winched up the Knowles Ford Cortina, or whatever the hell it was, when he was trying to pick up an egg. That's what happened, right? Jake Bloody Barber is responsible for this. But that is crazy though, right? That is crazy. The fact that we have an egg. We have an egg encounter in 1988. This egg business isn't going away, and apparently it's not new. Don says slow motion also happens in epinephrine spikes, which all of them would have been experienced. Interesting. Thank you for that. Dan Garden says potentially a gas being released in the air, like helium or nitrous oxide. Regina saying inhaling gas can change your voice. That is interesting. And they did say that a gas was seeping in through the window. So potentially could have been the inhalation of gas that was doing it to them. But he did also say that they felt like they were dying and like their brain was being sucked out or something like that. It's kind of crazy. La Luna Galaxies gifted a membership. La Luna, thank you very much, you beautiful person. And welcome to whoever received that membership. So let's take a look at the last video now. This is kind of like a little bit of a compilation, a little bit of like extra information from the Knowles family, but also from some of the truck driving witnesses who had their own experience that night, but also saw the Knowles family when they got to the next service station, and they were in a panic. Mork from Ork? Yes, exactly. And it's weird, isn't it? How Mork and Mindy, this TV show from what, the 70s? I could be off there, before my time, but I know what it is. Depicts this alien from another planet arriving on Earth in an egg. What a coincidence. Number 10,941, if my estimates are correct, which they are. So let's check this video out. This is the last one we got.
It was not the normal type of trauma that you see on the road. It was definitely some other encounter that they'd come across. These people were spooked.
What was it that so spooked a family driving along a lonely stretch of highway on the Nullarbor? No one can say for sure, not even the Knowles family themselves.
Well, the best way to describe the experience was, it wasn't like reality, it was just like a dream, but it was real.
You couldn't say there is anything out of the ordinary about the Knowles family, Faye and her sons Patrick, Sean and Wayne. But something out of the ordinary certainly happened to them on January the 20th, 1988. They were driving the 3,500 kilometres from their home in Perth to Melbourne. It was 3 a.m. Sean was at the wheel. His brother Patrick was asleep beside him. The desert was cool and clear as they entered Majura Pass in the middle of the Nullarbor.
Yeah, I think that quote saying it wasn't like reality is, again, very interesting because, you know, we hear that these things, these encounters, abductions, feel like they're perhaps happening in like a dreamlike state, or maybe they are happening in some kind of like alternate version of reality, another dimension, like who knows. But it's interesting to hear these guys talk about this in 1988 using like language that is very similar but much more prevalent in the UFO space today. But they're sort of using it in like not necessarily that way. They're just trying their best to explain it, and it has hints of the way we understand these things today. But it's interesting because these people obviously wouldn't have had that context to use those words. They're just doing their best to describe whatever the hell happened to them. Give the volume a little bump. Okay, yes, sir. Give me a moment, and I will throw a bit of gain on that bad boy for us. Hopefully this will sound a little bit better. Let's keep going.
Then, out of nowhere, Sean saw it. A dazzling white light headed straight for them.
He told me, "Hey, Pat, wake up. There's something in front of us." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Wake up and check it out." He goes, "Look at that." He goes, "It's a UFO."
Sean panicked, tried to swerve out of the way, but still the object bore down on them. But that was only the beginning. Sean put his foot down and sped off along the highway.
It chased us for about a half hour, and then somehow it got in front of us. It must went around us, and the faster we went, the faster this object went. And before we knew it, this object landed on a car.
Repairs Smith says, I have a shop in Adelaide, and one of the customers, an old man, claims he was a former spook in the program. He says the Knowles family incident was a back-engineered craft flown from out of Woomera. That's very interesting, Repairs Smith. I would love to hear more about that story. If you have more information about that, please send me an email. I would love to hear it. But yes, it's an interesting fact that Woomera, which, you know, we've spoken about a lot on the channel, basically Australia's Area 51, famous for a lot of anomalous sightings and is in the, you know, is so remote. Like, Australia is a massive place, guys, if you don't live here. You know, you guys have Area 51 and it's sort of out remote in the desert. Woomera is like so much more remote. Like, if you guys go look at a map, look at how big Australia is, and then just understand that the only places that people really live there are along the very edge, and not even along the whole way on the edge. Like, there's just a few little spots on the edge. The rest of it is basically a desert that not many people live in, and the further you get to the middle, like, the less people live in it. And Woomera takes up a massive chunk of that central area. And it is very close to Mundrabilla where this happened. So, you know, something coming out of Woomera doing this, maybe. But then it begs the question of, like, if it came out of Woomera, you would assume that it's human-made or it's ours. Maybe, I mean, maybe it isn't. You know, maybe we have agreements. Maybe we're working alongside them in secret space programs. Who knows? But if it is human, why the hell are they doing this to other humans? That's a big question. If that, and I'm not saying that means it's fake. I'm just saying, what are the implications of that? Like, if that is what's happening, what does that actually mean? Like, what is the motivation? Are they just messing around, trying to scare people for fun? Is it just a psyop? Who knows?
Next, the unbelievable happened. To this day, the Knowles family are adamant that their car was actually lifted off the ground.
I'm sorry. We have overheated, ladies and gentlemen. I will continue playing this video, and we will be back shortly.
This is right. They were left suspended in midair. Sean, the driver, blacked out. The others became hysterical.
My mum was crying, screaming, just saying, we're going to die, we're going to die, we're going to die. And all I just thought was, my God, this is it, you know. I just thought, why us? For God's sake, why us? And all I can remember then was we were dropped.
As the car crashed back to Earth, Sean regained consciousness. In terror, the family fled from the car and hid in the saltbush scrub. After a while, the object slowly moved away, and the Knowles headed for the nearest civilization, the Mundrabilla Roadhouse. What they didn't know was that Melbourne trucker Graham Henley had been driving on the same stretch of road that night. He arrived at the Mundrabilla Roadhouse just before dawn, just before the Knowles family.
This blue Telstar came in a hell of a hurry. And these three young fellas and their mother jumped out of it. They were all talking at once. And the funny noises that one of them was making, he was obviously scared, witless.
In fact, the Knowles was so scared, Graham Henley didn't get around to telling them what he'd seen on the Nullarbor that night. A bright magnesium type of light.
It just swerved and veered all over one side of the vehicle to the other. And I thought, what the heck's going on, you know? So I sort of accelerated a bit more and kept going, and then all of a sudden it disappeared. Just faded almost to nothing. Back it came again. And I thought, goodness knows, must be a helicopter or a roo shooter or something like this, having a bit of fun, and I never took much more notice of it.
But after talking to the Knowles family at the Mundrabilla Roadhouse, Henley did take notice. In fact, he and another truck driver drove back to Majura Pass, where they found evidence that seemed to back up what the Knowles had said.
Everything was exactly where they'd turned around, the skid marks on the road, where they'd hidden in the bushes. One of the boys had cut the tops of his toes in the gravel, and you could even see the little drops of blood on the gravel and the sand and stuff where it was.
The incident and the Knowles captured headlines around the world. The police were called in, and the Knowles car was impounded. Experts tested it, but they could find no concrete evidence of an alien encounter. And so that was where the authorities let the matter rest.
No, I don't really think a lot of it has been investigated the way it should. But there was certainly, to my way of thinking, there was enough evidence to warrant a thorough investigation.
Certainly.
It's interesting, like, the kind of theatrics that they're applying to this. So this is obviously more of like, I don't actually know what show this is from. I just found this on YouTube. But, you know, the kind of theatrics that are going along with it, I don't think it's really helping the situation. It's not really selling the story. It's not helping sell the story, at least in the modern day. But I feel like back in the 80s, perhaps, I don't know, this added like more intrigue. It made the story more believable for people. Whereas, and I could be wrong there, I'm guessing, but I feel like today, when you've got this like weird soundtrack and these like cinematic recreations and dramatizations of the event, it really isn't helping. But again, this is like a bit of a time capsule, right? super interesting case. And it's really cool to look back at, you know, the kind of language people were using in the 80s, the way they were perceived and the way they were like dealt with. It's really interesting. And Achy Balls has just put in $50 and says 89, not 98. I made a typo. So a year after these guys, Woomera. I remember how strange that place was. Majority of the town were US military and they were getting around in huge left-hand drive yank tanks eyeballing us. It felt like another country. Wow, that's fascinating. I've heard that Alice Springs is like that. Alice Springs, for anyone who doesn't know, is like the closest town to Pine Gap. A lot of but what's interesting, right, is from what I've heard, like there isn't a whole heap of Americans in Alice Springs, but Pine Gap is obviously a massive base. I think, you know, we're assuming here, but I think you don't have to be, you know, Werner von Braun to work out that most of Pine Gap is probably underground. Now, if people aren't living in Alice Springs, they're living like a long way away from work for the people who live at Pine Gap. So I feel like there could be a lot of Americans living in Pine Gap, like under the ground. I mean, I don't know. I'm just guessing. But like, if they're not living at Alice Springs, I don't know where the hell they're living. And it's a big base. And it could be the exact same for Woomera, man. It could be the exact same. A lot of people saying yank tank is crazy. I feel like I've heard that term before. I feel like I have heard that term. I like it. I might try and use it more. Thank you again, Achy Balls. Huge super chat, man. I really appreciate the support. Thank you.
Something happened to that family that early morning.
Keith Basterfield is an independent UFO researcher, and he actually took the trouble to investigate the Knowles case.
Yes, Heather, you're right. There is potentially a maglev train running from Pine Gap to Canberra. They're not my words. They are the words of the whistleblowers who have came to the channel telling us this.
His report is exhaustive, but it's also inconclusive.
The manner in which the whole external factors came to deal with that family, in fact, probably has ruined us ever really knowing, because of the competing elements. The media wanting a quick story, sensational story, which is fine. That's their job. The police, who were disinterested once they found out they had a cookie UFO experience to deal with. The UFO researchers, because they couldn't really sit down to quietly explore the case. And the family themselves, because they suddenly found themselves the focus of an international effort when they were simply trying to get to Melbourne on holidays. I don't think we'll ever know.
Nevertheless, 5 years down the track, the Knowles family are still sticking to their story.
Oh, bloody oath, yeah. You betcha.
Bloody oath, yeah, you betcha. You can't argue with that. If an Aussie tells you bloody oath, yeah, you betcha, you know he's telling the truth, okay? It's just the way it is. I don't make the rules. I'm just telling you guys, bloody oath, yeah, you betcha, he's not lying, okay? It's just the way it is.
They can think what they want, but I know what I know.
Family driving across the lonely Nullarbor plain is chased by strange lights. Then their car is literally lifted off the ground and dropped again by the same glowing object. All this supposedly happened early yesterday, but was it a hallucination or a close encounter with aliens? Well, several other people have reported seeing mysterious lights in the same area, among them truck driver John de Jong, who joins us now from Adelaide. John, are you convinced that there was a UFO sighting on the highway?
Yes, 100% yes.
How can you say that?
Because of the condition of the people that it happened to. When we got to them, it was hysterical, well, out of this world, put it any way you like.
I can tell you that I've just seen little green men, but you're not likely to believe me, are you?
No.
So why do you believe this particular story?
Well, there's two incidents that come up fairly recent in the last few months. One is I was followed for about an hour and a bit by a big bright light, which sounds silly, but I was followed. I was on my own. There was no backup to that story. It did frighten me. I actually kept travelling and locked my cab up and kept driving.
There must be a strong easterly wind where this guy is, because that hair is just it's blowing. It's blowing easterly hard.
It sounds silly, but it's true.
Did you think that was a UFO at the time?
First up, I thought it was a helicopter doing low flying, but no way. It wasn't a helicopter because I checked it out to see if it was one in the area.
So that was one experience. Any more?
Yes, I had another one just before Christmas, about an hour from where this happened. I was travelling along, minding my own business, and the truck just got uncontrollable. I couldn't drive it, so I just pulled it up very smartly, got out, checked all my steering, and everything was in perfect condition. I took off and no more dramas.
So how do you explain these mysterious occurrences in that very spot?
I wish I knew. It's not scary, it's a mystery that I wouldn't mind solving. It's a problem out there, it's a lot more happening.
Do you know of any other drivers who've had similar experiences there?
A lot of us talk about them, yeah.
What kind of experiences?
Well, the sort of things that, like I've just said, the truck just does funny things, you get electrical problems.
Electrical problems in the truck. I mean, again, these are just recurring themes. I think we literally see this depicted in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which, to be fair, came out before this encounter happened. So, you know, he could just be copying the movie. But I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think Close Encounters, which was directed by Steven Spielberg, who also just happened to depict his aliens exactly like the Nazca mummies look. I think the truth is Steven Spielberg and the people behind that movie actually knew some things, and that what you see in that movie is realistic depictions of how these objects, crafts, whatever you want to call them, do interact with humans, electronics, and how they actually look. And I mean, that's just going off where we're at today.
There's no electricity out there, so what's going on? Your hair stands up on the back of your neck for no reason. You get frightened.
That's what Dylan Borland said, right? Didn't Dylan Borland just say at the UAP hearing that when that big triangle took off, his phone overheated and his hair was standing up? Or am I imagining that part of it?
So there's a whole lot of you truckies who are now believers in UFOs.
Well, whether it's UFOs or what it is, I don't know. But see, the thing that, how do you explain it? You see things and you hear things, but no one wants to believe you. It's hard to come on here and explain it. It's nearly impossible.
Have you ever said to yourself, maybe I'm going a little crazy?
No.
I was imaginating it. Yeah, perfect. I thought I was imaginating. I do have quite the imagination. As you can probably tell. Shoulder pads, why did women want to look like linebackers? We really do have a good track record of showing people with shoulder pads and interesting hairdos. It just seems to be a theme. Most people would say I do it on purpose, but I swear that I don't. I swear that I don't.
You're absolutely sure that you've experienced...
I've got to be silly to be driving a truck, but that's beside the point.
So what kind of effect has all of this had on you? Are you more careful when you drive down that stretch of road?
Well, we'll be going back again next week.
See what happens next week?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, well, every trip's a different one, but this is one that I would like to follow through because it actually happened. And if it hadn't have been for the people, I wouldn't have worried about it.
John, thanks for joining us.
I just find it interesting that us oldies are more open to this than one would think, been through now 2 New Age movements. I mean, I think people of all ages are really open to this stuff. I think it's a bit of a stereotype that, you know, it's more the younger generations, and I feel like generally it is, like, on a larger percentage, but I do think it's pretty clear that people of all ages are open to this stuff, and I think a lot of people who are older have probably believed just as much as people who are younger, but perhaps haven't been as vocal about it because, as you can see from looking at this stuff from the 80s, you know, these people basically trauma dumped on live TV, and the host just went, well, be safe on the roads. You betcha. Like, people just didn't get it back then. People barely get it now, it feels like.
Away from the reported sighting of a UFO on the Nullarbor Plain. This is despite a second report from a Port Lincoln-based tuna boat that they were buzzed by a UFO. The Defence Department says it won't be investigating. Police also don't intend to test forensic evidence taken from the car of a Perth family's encounter for at least another 10 days.
Left to their defence. Truckie Graham Henley tracked down the Perth family in Melbourne today to offer his support for what he believes was a terrifying experience.
Graham Henley has spent 12 years crossing the Nullarbor and he's seen some strange things. Today he caught up with the Knowles family to talk about one of the strangest.
You look a bit better than the last time I saw you.
Graham went looking for Faye and her sons after scientific reports discounted their story that their car had been damaged by a UFO. Graham was the first person to speak to the four after their encounter, and he inspected the Ford Telstar.
I don't believe in little green men with aerials sticking out their head. That's it in a nutshell. But I do believe they were interfered with.
Isn't it funny how he even felt the need to, like, say that? Little green men with aerials sticking out of their head. Like, that's where we were at in 1988. That people associated any little story with wacky little green men with aerials coming out of their head. It's crazy, right? And yes, guys, please, if you're enjoying this and if you've been enjoying the content lately, please slap a like on the video. It's quick, free, and it actually does help a lot.
I've got my own ideas on it. They were definitely interfered with.
What state were they in when you saw them at the petrol station?
Absolutely terrified. Totally terrified. Their reactions were totally different to a person out of a car accident.
I think that's an interesting point to make, that he specified. Because someone who's just had a car accident is like, I guess, probably looking for help, a little bit just like maybe injured or whatever. And he's sort of saying that's not the case here. Like, these people were like panicking. Like, it was fear. It was fear. It wasn't like, I need help, I'm injured. It was like, what the hell is happening to me?
For the reunion, in more relaxed circumstances, there was even a chance to laugh about their ordeal.
These two guys standing trying to pour this fuel in the car. I reckon you got 3 gallons on the ground and one in the car.
Graham will drive his truck back across the Nullarbor this week.
So I'm going to throw up a poll right now in the chat. I'm interested to see what you guys think about this story. Do you believe the Knowles family? The poll is up in the chat. You guys can vote yes, no, or unsure. We'll leave this up for a few minutes while we kind of debrief the situation. I'm interested to see what you guys think. Achy Ball said this is peak. The 80s was peak stereotype Australia. It feels like sometimes that, you know, when you look back at older videos, and maybe, I don't know if, like, do people in other countries get this, like English, Americans? When I look at videos of Australians in like the 70s, 80s, not as much the 90s, I feel like, but a little bit. But when you start going back, the way we spoke was so different. Like, we had a different, not a different dialect, but like our accent has definitely evolved and like changed over time, which I guess is normal, right? But it was just very like distinct back then, very Aussie. So far, we have a heavy 90% favor in this, but the votes are still coming in. And I'm, you know, that makes me happy because I definitely believe these guys too. I feel like they look traumatized. And again, like, I just find the argument that, oh, these people are just looking for fame to be so dull and boring and just lazy. And I'm not saying that that never happens. I think it does, but I think it happens so much less than, you know, skeptics and debunkers would like us to think. Because the reality is, trying to tell someone that you got your car lifted up and your voice started changing and your tire popped at 200 kilometers and you slammed back and you're all freaking out, trying to tell that as a story to be popular and make money, you know, I'm no business advisor, but I don't think that's going to do too well. Especially when the general consensus of aliens is little green men with aerials sticking out of their head. I think what you're telling people is probably a fantastic recipe for you to be laughed at and ridiculed for the rest of your existence. And that is likely what has happened to these guys, right? And you know, this is still an unsolved case. Like, nothing came of this. There's no conclusion. There's no formal, like, rigorous investigation. Like all of it, it just kind of evaporates into the void of time. But in 1988, we're hearing about egg-shaped craft. It's interesting, right? It's very, very interesting. They had nothing to gain from this but insults and laughter. You're exactly right, Render. I agree with you. And I think that's the case for most people, that it's just about, you know, that no one is making this stuff up. Well, I know some people are, but give me a case of anyone who's become famous and gotten rich off of telling an alien story. I'll wait right here. I'll wait right here. And while I do, I'll close off the poll. We've got nearly 200 votes in here. And the poll results are in. The tribe has spoken. 88% of you guys believe the Knowles family. 9% of you are unsure. And 3% of you say no. There we go. I think most of us found that pretty compelling. I certainly did. Stephen Dope says Stephen Greer. Fair play, sir. Fair play. Look, I like Greer. I do. I think his arrogance bothers people, and I get that. I even find him a little bit annoying too. But and I don't believe everything he says as well. But I think that's two really important distinctions to make. That I really think everyone should try to adopt this in the world of ufology. Just because someone is annoying, it doesn't mean they're wrong or lying. And I know it's hard, but like, and apply this to everywhere in life, not just ufology. When someone has an annoying character or has little character traits that like trigger you or bother you for some reason, try not to let that blind your, like, try not to let that block the information they're giving. Because sometimes people who are really annoying, people who are dickheads, people who are assholes, sometimes they actually have something to say that's worth listening to. There's no sort of direct correlation between character and the information one has, right? And the other thing is, just because someone maybe gets something wrong once, that doesn't mean they're always wrong. So just a couple of data points that I think, in this world are important to just keep in the pocket, keep in the back pocket. You bloody betcha. What was it that they said? You bloody betcha. Fair dinkum. True blue. Yeah, right. Look, let's wrap up here. As I said, we will give the beautifulest girl one more treat for all of her hard work today. She did actually have to step in for a little bit of hosting, and we don't work for free here. We don't work for free. I mean, I'll make you earn the snack, but we don't work for free. Absolutely not. Thank you guys for hanging out today. I had a really good time. Suki enjoyed it too. And I don't know if we'll have a video tomorrow. We might be live. We might not. But I put out a video today. You got this live stream to check back up on. But if it's not tomorrow, it'll be the day after. So take care, and I'll see you then.
Say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.